Hi, in this video we will see how to create the interface that allows YouCubes to connect to your company data. Let's have a look at YouCubes architecture first. Data usually comes from different sources. Through the interface, YouCubes populate the data warehouse and create the analysis models. Users can then visualize the data using business intelligence tools, Excel, and others. Let's see how YouCubes works. YouCubes reads company data by writing SQL queries that link the staging area with the data coming from the company databases. In order to connect to the data sources, you need to create one or more linked servers in SQL Management Studio. This technology allows connecting to many sources, like text files, Oracle, DB2, etc. The staging area is a physical space where data is imported and prepared for the control phase, which will then produce a certified data warehouse. The activity of checking and uploading data in the data warehouse are managed by specific YouCubes scripts, which are used when creating the refresh plan. YouCubes has an application that enables to get a basic query to use to extract the data, check the syntax of your query, and finally test the insert of sample rows in the staging area. Let's see how to do it in practice. Start the browser and go to YouCubes menu. The steps to create the interface are the following. Create a linked server with the feeding data sources. Match the enterprise with the linked server created. And create the interface queries. As said, we first need to create a linked server. So let's start SQL Management Studio. Then expand Server Objects, and then Linked Server. Bear in mind that this has to be created where YouCubes is installed. For a comprehensive guide on how to create a linked server, look for official Microsoft documentation. The second step is to link the enterprise in YouCubes to the linked server we just created. So we go to Utilities, General Configuration, and then System Options. We now choose ETL by Enterprise. The data for one company can come from more than one linked server, so we will create one record for each of them. To create a new entry, we will click the plus button. Mandatory fields are the enterprise, the application we want to interface. In the ERP technology, we will always choose SQL Server, the ERP version, and in here we will put the linked server we just created. Finally, the execution order. So we just created a connection that YouCubes will use to connect to the data. We can now go back and create the interface to our data. So select Interface Creator in the menu. We can see a list of tables that have already been interfaced. To create a new one, click the plus. The screen is split in two: the parameters area, where we create the interface, and the test area, where we can try what we just did. To create the interface, there are some mandatory fields. One is enterprise, so the best practice here is to specify dummy and to use a specific enterprise only if you want to create specific business logics for that enterprise. So for example, for enterprise YouCubes, you want to specify that if product key is 001, then we want to force the product group field to be 25. In this case, we'll just leave it dummy. The origin data, so where the data is coming from. In the ERP technology, we will choose SQL Server, and the ERP version, in this case, to be number 1. In case you upgrade your ERP, you can have different versions of the interface. The final step is to select for which table of the staging area we want to create the interface. Once you have selected the table to interface, you have two options. If you select View of DB, you will have to create a view in the data source that contains the join logic between tables providing the data. This view will have to return the fields needed by the staging table with same column names. In this case, YouCubes will create a query containing those fields. Those can contain also null values. For sake of simplicity, it is a good practice to name the view as the interface table, like DWH purchase. The second option is to use YouCubes user interface. So if you select YouCubes, you will have to create the query directly in YouCubes. And you can also take advantage of all the power and functions provided by SQL. For example, where, union all, joins, etc. The second option is preferred as maintenance and business logics are centralized in YouCubes. In the queries created by YouCubes, you can see some peculiarities. For example, field XX. This means that the field is mandatory. Or $enterprise contains the enterprise name assigned by YouCubes. The variable $dborigin contains the linked server name. This logic allows reusing the queries even if linked server or enterprise code change. YouCubes also save the SQL statement that contains the field names to transfer. By doing this, the query will continue to work even if something changed in the destination table. For example, a new release adding a new column. We can see those fields by opening the parameters section. As example, we will take a query already in the system. For example, ANAC product cost. As we can see, this contains the business logic. In this phase, it is possible to implement all the logic that will affect the analysis models built by YouCubes afterwards. For example, classifications, groupings, etc. It also exists one more option to manipulate data at this stage. We will cover that at the end of the tutorial. After writing the query, we can test it by clicking Run in the test area. By doing this, no data will be inserted into the staging table. If there are no errors, we can test the insert of a data sample into the destination table and check the validation. An additional functionality allows users to visualize the destination table structure, providing information on data properties and their link to lookup tables. The last step after interfacing all the staging tables needed is to set the execution plan for the ETL process. This activity is usually undertaken by the company parameterizing YouCubes. We will now see the last thing you need to know when interfacing YouCubes. In some cases, there is a need to execute specific queries on staging data before this is moved into the data warehouse. The most frequent cases are update of some content with values from the data warehouse, insert of specific rows into staging without having to interfere with feeding applications, The procedure is very similar to interfacing a table. The main difference is that in the ERP version field, we will specify the version followed by the constant underscore after. In this case, the query is executed after all the main ones, according to the order specified in the execution order field. Thanks for your attention, and if you have any question, please get in touch with us.